There are some events the community receives with more angst than others. Sultifera Naves, Ideal City, Near Light. What is in all of those events that make people so passionate to the point of calling them the worst? Welcome back to Motherland Ursus! Today I'm here to discuss why some game mechanics can feel so terrible at times. We are in the middle of the Near Light rerun, and I see as much frustration as I saw during the original run of the event. There's so much to see and experience. The lore is big, and the bosses are very unique, as are the mini-bosses. But what brings it all to the next level is, of course, the light mechanics. There is something about it that just feels wrong. You have to spend more deployments to clear a path, or just playing a different way that you are used to. Your orbs get thrown around in weird directions because you gotta get to that specific tile, and it gets even weirder when you bring enemies into consideration. When Touhou appears, you either have your ops looking all over the place, or everyone starts to randomly get bonked because you didn't pay attention. And when you stop to think about it, it becomes clear what makes not only this mechanic, but the other events I mentioned as well, so painful for most players. It's your freedom being taken away from you. We are used to being able to do whatever the hell you want. Arknights doesn't hold your hand through a single path and slaps you if you diverge. You can turtle by the blue box and wait for enemies to come, you can spawn kill everything, you can throw ops all over the map, activate their skills and recall them, you can play with the best operators or the worst operators. It doesn't matter, you can do all of it and more. But then Near Light comes and says, what if you couldn't do everything you wanted? What if you had a limitation imposed by the game? And sure, people in the community have been imposing limitations to themselves for a long time. But it's not the same thing when you do it because you want and when you do it because someone makes you do it. That's why that meme exists. You are happy and ready to wash some dishes. Then someone asks you to do it and you don't want anymore. We don't like being told to do stuff. And this is the feeling Near Light presents. This is the feeling Sultifera Naves presented, and Ideal City too. And I would even say Chapter 6 did as well. I don't know if everyone remembers or if these days people just fly over Chapter 6 like it's nothing, but people hated being chill and frozen all the time. Freeze devices, ice casters, ice spiders. There was just not enough silence to protect you from your own salt. Being forced to deploy from the light source, to bring the light where you want to play, is an extra step on the way of your fun, and it can be extremely frustrating. But now, I will say, in reality, I don't think it's all that bad. Sure, it has that awful feel to it, but it's a problem with our way of thinking more than with the game. Think about it, what made people hate Ideal City? Having to play with cars and enemies with 100% physical dodge. Now ask yourself, is it reasonable for a game with 2 damage types to ask its players to use only one of those to deal with a specific threat? If it isn't, well, we have been making games wrong for as long as I can remember, because enemies with immunities are not that uncommon. And the cars. Look, complaints about the cars make very little sense to me, but I am going to acknowledge them for the sake of discussion. The cars in Ideal City were a novelty, something different to play with, something different to see stages being destroyed by. And where do I see most of the car hate coming from? Either from people who love seeing the game being exploded by their own overpowered operators, or from people who want to be hardcore players, who want to beat the stages with their own imposed challenges without using the cars. Why do you want the game to be easily beatable when you are challenging yourself? If you ask me, the most fun niches in Arknights are the ones who can't beat everything, because they are truly difficult. If you chose to do something like that, don't come crying because the game isn't balanced for you, for heaven's sake. And the other group I mentioned, you can still beat all of Ideal City without the cars with your own overpowered stuff. Come on, you don't need to complain about it. I got a bit heated up, but the truth is, all of the hate came from the game taking away the freedom from its players. We went from, do whatever you want, to, please bring some casters and click the cars. Oh, and please remember to kill the surfers. Were those mechanics fun? Absolutely. Did they feel fun at first? No, because it wasn't the player's choice. Now coming back to Near Light. You can't just spawn kill everything, because you need bodies to create light, and that takes time to do. You can't just start redeploying all over the place because when an op is retreated, the light goes away. You are held in line by those shadows around you. It's suffocating. And then we get to the worst part. Corrosion snipers. Yes, that was the cherry on top to finish the biggest hate cake we had so far. Sure, there are easy answers to them, but at this point, we all know that people might just not see them, or might get upset just like with the Dodge Boys in Sultifera Naves. Sure, there are easy answers, but how many really want to play with those answers? And when you don't answer them properly, they become a real pain. Operators drop into zero defense out of nowhere. Awkward lights going out because of snipers killing ops. The formation crumbling down because you couldn't deploy all you wanted in time. People extremely frustrated wishing they had flag pipe to deploy more stuff in time. I won't even try to be funny at those players, because this doesn't hurt the said hardcore players. This hurts the casual side of the community, and I know how painful it is. But you gotta relax for a second and realize, it's not that complicated. It never is that complicated. Arknights is made for the casual side of the community. You are never expected to play with the most busted stuff out there. Let's talk a little bit about Sultifera. What was bad in that event? Dodge Boys and Creep. We also had a novelty mechanic in the Roombas. People didn't complain about the Roombas existing, probably because they didn't do that much, so less fun and less to complain about. But the Predators were indeed a heated topic. Again, what they did was take away your freedom to play whatever you wanted and asked you aggressively to use any kind of CC mechanic. You could use silence, you could use bind, freeze, stun, levitate, doesn't matter. It took the dodge away, but it was still something painful for the community. CC is widely available among the operators in Arknights, but people still struggled and hated being forced to play around it. The Creep, on the other hand, was a bigger threat that asked specifically for silence or for Roomba micro. It was way more forcing than the Predators themselves, but it had a more meme answer in our context, because everyone these days loves to say how much Lapland is terrible until she isn't. But we still have one thing to cover: new players. Obviously, new players can't meet those demands like veterans can, and they can easily feel this lack of freedom much more strongly than we who played for years. And in this case, I have no defense. Yes, it is harder for new players. But should a new player expected to clear content like it's nothing? Does it really make a difference for them if they start with a demanding mechanic that asks for something specific, or if they start on anything else that only asks for levels? I don't have an answer, but it's something to think about. To us, it might feel like a scary place to put new players in, but to a new player, this is just a new game with hard stuff they are not ready for. If anything, all the commotion might bring players to fear what otherwise they would accept as a challenge for a future date. I have two friends who started playing during Sultifera Naves, and they got quite far into the event. I can't really know how much my input really helped them. I'm sure they themselves wouldn't be able to tell, but I can say one thing I did right, was to not scare them. And it would be nice if we all could do the same. Instead of shoving complaints into the brains of new players, just teach them how to win. Show them how things work, and they might enjoy it. Or they won't, but at least they won't have your bias in their opinion. But the bottom line of all of this was, events like Near Light are taking part of our freedom away, and it makes us mad. But those mechanics are not the end of the world. They are acceptable. They don't scale the game difficult continuously, they only ask you to play a little bit differently for one event. And this is why we love to hate it so much. And this is why you should tell me your opinion down in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. This was Kuma, and I hope everyone has a very nice day. Peace out.